Steve, alcoholic.
Excellent.
It's good to be here. It's good to be sober. Thanks, Scarlett, and whoever else invited me up. It was always an honor and a privilege to share in Alcoholics Anonymous. And welcome to the Love and Service group. I got a pad. I got a pin. I don't know if you guys see it. It's a pin. Yeah. Are you impressed? This is a program of honesty. Are you impressed? My sobriety day is July 27th, 1996. So I've been sober 29 years. I'm a little changed, and I'm really glad to be invited up here. And obviously this is a love and service group. So I thought, hey, why don't I just talk about love and service? And when I was new, when I got here, as some of you know, probably most of you know, in 1950, before Dr. Bob died, one of his probably most famous addresses is he talks about love and service. He talks about how the 12 steps, when simmered down to their essence, resolve to love and service. And he went on to say, we all know what love is and we all know what service is, which if you've been around a while, that's true. But when I was new, that's not true. I didn't know what love and service was. I thought love was a sex act or a feeling or an emotion. I did not understand that the fruit of love is service, which is what Mother Teresa talks about, that essentially the demonstration of love, the embodiment of love is service. I had no concept of that. When I got here, on a court card. I'm the kind of guy that, I knew I was an alcoholic, but I thought I was different than you. I'm the kind of guy, my wife would send me out to get milk. And it's really not a complicated task. I mean, there's like a couple parts to it. You got to leave the house. You got to go to the store. You got to buy the milk. And here's the kicker. You got to come home with the milk. Yeah, you're laughing because that's hard, man. That's hard. Because I run into my friend Alice, somebody like my friend Alice, and she would invite me for a beer. And I'm like, it's like a basic food group. How you can't get it? I mean, come on, right? And I start drinking beer and I don't understand that the allergic reaction is going to kick in. It's like that mosquito bite that I can't stop scratching, And so I keep drinking and I don't get where I want to go. I don't even know where I want to go. I just want to not be here. So I enhance it with tequila. I'm drinking beer, shooting tequila. 3 days later, I come to, I pass out. I've been out for 3 days. And I come to and I realize, I got to go get the milk. And so I go get the milk and my wife is unimpressed. She's pissed off. I'm delusional. I think, what's the problem? I just, it feels like I just left, right? Well, you guys are overreacting, right? And then I get popped for a DUI. I come into Alcoholics Anonymous. You're telling me your story is my story. I don't like your story. I don't like my story. You talk about an inability to control and enjoy your drinking. I don't like that. I don't like that, but I hear what you're saying. I know I can't drink. I can't drink. And I'm under the delusion that if I just stop drinking, I'll get better. And that's not my story. What happens is I stop drinking and I get worse. I'm suffering from untreated alcoholism. Or more accurately, you are suffering from my untreated alcoholism. Because I am just mean and nasty. They talk about being restless, irritable, and discontent. I am just perpetually pissed off. And I don't understand it. And I've been 100 days stark raving sober. And, old timers are telling me, hey, just, sit down, try not to cause any problems. And for God's sakes, don't talk to any newcomers because they still have hope. It was bad. And I went off on a business trip and I didn't drink, but I kind of had a meltdown. And I came back and I'm at this meeting because I don't know what to do. I'm at this meeting and there was a guy there named Jim, and Jim became my grand sponsor without my permission. I learned later he was talking about sponsorship, and this is not what he said, but what I heard. And by the way, if you're new, sometimes we think things are happening that are not happening. This may be news to you, but I will assure you this is true. And what I heard was, if you don't get a sponsor, you're going to die. That's not what Jim said. But that's what I heard. And so, I'm quick on the uptake and I realized I'm falling apart. So I went up to Jim and I said, hey, Jim, I've been around about 100 days. I think it's time for me to interview for a sponsor, which if you've been around a while, that sounds ridiculous, right? But in my mind, I heard people saying things like, hey, find somebody that has what you want, right? You really got to find the right person. So I got a complex set of social issues. Not anybody can sponsor me, right? I got to interview this guy because I got to find the right guy. And I'm explaining this to Jim in detail. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. And finally he goes, God, you are pathetic. And he grabs me by the shoulder. He takes me outside. He introduces me to a guy named Michael. And he says, Michael, Steve, Michael, sponsor, sponsee, go with God. And he walks away laughing. And I'm thinking, this is not funny. It's not even, I don't even know this guy. He's younger than me. I don't know this guy. I mean, I don't know this, but Michael's excited because he's just been given a new fish. And he's like excited. He gets a piece of paper. He writes his phone number, his address on it. He says, do you have a big book? I'm like, yeah. Do you have a 12 and 12? Yeah. He goes, good. You're going to need both of them. I want you to read the first chapter in the big book. And actually, I want you to write from the very beginning of the big book through the doctor's opinion, and then read the first chapter of 12 and 12, which is about step one. I want you to highlight on the big book what you agree with, what you disagree with. If you've got questions, just put it in your book. We're gonna talk about it when you come meet me on Monday night at 6:30. And I'm like, all right. So I show up and I've done my homework, right? I got some highlighting, I got some questions. It's not written very well. I could probably clarify a few things, right? So we're sitting there and I'm getting ready to explain things to him, and he starts telling me his story. I don't realize that's what we do. We're a society of storytellers. We tell our story. That's how we get sober. That's how we stay sober. But I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And finally he gets done and he says, okay, pick up your book. Let's start reading. And I said, no, I did what you asked me to do. I've got some questions. I got some highlighting. I showed him. He goes, no, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to read this book. We're going to go from the very beginning, from the forward, the preface. We're going to go through from the very beginning, all the way, page by page, line by line, word for word through the whole book. And I am thinking, this is a level of lameness that I wasn't really prepared for. But I got nothing. I'm shot out. I've been beaten into a state of reasonableness. So I figure I'll do it. And I'm kind of judgmental too. So I'd made an assumption. I'm looking at my sponsor. I'm thinking, it's probably stupid. No, I probably can't even read, right? I mean, but I can read. I'll help the guy out, right? I found out later he's got a master's degree in nuclear engineering. He reads real good. He didn't have any problem reading, right? But I'm so delusional. I don't know what's going on. And what we did was we read this book. And when we got to a step, we worked the step. We got to a prayer. We said the prayer. And that's changed my life and it transformed me. And I wasn't expecting it. It seemed ridiculous if you're new and you're looking at the 12 steps on a window shade or up on it's just, or in the big book, it's just ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have anything to do with your complex set of social issues until you do it. And then it's kind of like magic. You can't really explain it. You can just experiential. You got to have an experience. And I sponsor a lot of guys, and I always tell them when they're having trouble, I just say, look, just look at it like a science experience. See what happens. See what happens. So we went through this process, and it was transformational. So now I'm sponsoring guys, and I'm working with guys, and I got to tell you, things are going pretty good. But I had not made amends to my father, and when I read my inventory to my sponsor. I talked about my father, but I made it very clear that I was not going to make amends to him because he had deserted me, at least in my mind. That was my story, right? And then we get, we're going through, we do 6 and 7, which I did a very superficial pass of that at the time. I'll tell you, it wasn't very clear. And we get to step 8, I'm looking at page 76. It says, we have a list of those we've harmed. We did it when we made amends. So I'm a lawyer. I'm pretty flexible. I just took him off the list. Right. Because I'm not going to make amends to my father. I made it very clear. I'm not going to make amends to him. I'm not going to do it. Right. And I read it to my sponsor. He pointed out that's not on your list. I said, yeah, I know that. He goes, do you think you're any better than your sponsor? No, I got that. And he said, you deserted you were deserted, right? When you were a kid, when you were 4 or 5 years old. Yeah. I said, well, didn't you tell me that you had this newcomer plan? You were going to go to Costa Rica. You had some passports and you were going to leave. And I think you mentioned you got a wife and you got a daughter. You weren't taking them with you, were you? Well, not exactly. Because you were going to desert them. If you look at it that way. And that's why in the 5th step, we admit to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrong. Because I can't see that. I'm delusional. I can't see that, right? So I'm not happy about this, right? He goes, well, don't worry about it now. We'll deal with it later, but we got to start. 6 and 7, we make the amends, start making the amends. I start making amends to my wife. I'm back in the big bed. I don't quite have the crossover privileges that I think I deserve, but I'll probably talk about that a little later. And then, I got these guys, I'm sponsoring these guys. I'm doing the 10th step. I got the 11th step. I'm trying to practice the principles in all my affairs. I'm trying to carry the message. Things are going pretty good, but I'm not making amends to my father. This goes on for a few years, and then my sponsor is he's not nagging me, but he's reminding me about this. He said, "Are you praying and meditating?" "Yeah." "What's happening?" "Nothing." "I got nothing." "I got nothing." I'm not getting the memo. And then I'm just having a conversation with him. I'm telling him, like, I gotta go up to Anchorage, Alaska. I'm going to do some depositions. I'm going to get ready for a trial, and I'll miss my home group, but I'll be back at the end of the week. He gets all excited. He lights up like a Christmas tree. He goes, "Man, that is great. You will make amends to your father." And I had forgotten that I had mentioned that my father at the time lived in Wasilla, Alaska, which is about 30 miles outside of Anchorage. So now my sponsor is connecting two clearly unrelated dots. And I'm explaining to him that these are unrelated dots, right? And I'm saying, like, "Hey, Michael, you don't, this is business. This is just business." And he's like, "What you don't understand is everything is about Alcoholics Anonymous. There's no separation. You just feel that there's a separation. That's the grand illusion of every alcoholic. You think you're separate and apart. You're not. You're connected to everything. You just don't realize it. And you certainly can't demonstrate it yet." He said, just call your father." So I call him. He says he'll see me. And then I go to Michael. I'm like, "All right, I did what you asked me to. I called him. What do I do now? What's my next step?" He goes, "I don't know. I'm not going up there. Talk to God." I'm like, "You're killing me." I used to call him the cosmic cupcake, the spiritual. The mystic muffin. He just drove me crazy. It didn't matter what the problem was. It was pray and meditate, ask God for guidance and direction. And he would say things to me. He said, "Lamb, God is old and slow. He doesn't wear a wristwatch. You got to really be patient. You got to pay. And the message may come at a meeting. It may come at the grocery store. You got to pay attention. You got to be here. Be present. Be here." Oh God, right? So I fly up there to say, and I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm flying up. I'm talking to God. I'm like, "All right, big guy. Anytime you're ready, just give me some guy. I got nothing, right?" And I show up with my father, and without thinking, I just grabbed him and I hugged him. And he buried his head in my shoulder, and he cried, and I cried, and forgiveness occurred, and you can't manufacture that. You just have to take action that makes no sense. And I got to tell you, I made amends to my father. I was getting more specific, and he didn't with me because he's not an alcoholic, right? And about 3 years later, it was like, it was COVID was going on. So he had a congestive heart failure. So he was in the hospital up in Anchorage, and no one could go see him. I couldn't see him. My stepmom, Leanthon, couldn't go see him. My half-sister, Peck, nobody could go see him. He didn't have COVID, but he was in one of those, no one could go see him, right? But I taught him how to do FaceTime. So he's like 88 at the time. He's not very technologically savvy. And I had explained to him that it's FaceTime. You look at the face, right? But he can't hear very well, which is my problem now. I got hearing aids. And he would hold the phone up to his extraordinarily hairy ear, and I'd be talking, I'd be looking at my dad's ear, right? And I got to tell you, and by the way, you young guys don't realize it. The old guys, you realize this stuff, you get to be like 60 years old, you need like a weed whacker to get rid of this. This is unbelievable, right? And so my father made amends to me. And it wasn't a very good amends. If I'd have given him a specific direction, I would have told him I'd have given him better guidance, but that's not the point. This is my father, and I'm trying to be of service, and I'm trying to show him love. I'm trying to be a part of, and I felt good about it. And a few years after that, because they couldn't put him in the ground for a while because of COVID, and they buried him at Arlington, which is, if you're in the military, it's kind of a big deal. I was in the military. I would never qualify for Arlington. You had to be like a Congressional Medal of Honor, General Flag Officer, that type of thing. And my father had a Silver Star, a Distinguished Flying Cross. He had an Air Medal. He had everything except a Congressional Medal of Honor. And at the ceremony, I've got my story, right? Well, they start reading the citation about Major Ted. And his Silver Star citation was about a guy named Bill Buckley. And Bill Buckley was in Special Forces, and he was in Vietnam, and he had an A-team, and the team was under fire. And Ted Lamb had flown in on a very small prop plane on a dike for a rice paddy that you can't even land on it. Done this 3 times, got the team out, saved Bill Buckley's life. you think you know your story. I knew Bill. I served with Bill in 1983. I was in Special Forces. He was a CIA station chief at the time. I left in October of 1983. I left 3 days before the beach landing team blew up. A couple of weeks after that, Bill was captured. He was tortured by the Hezbollah. He was murdered. 25, 35, 40 years later, I find out that this is the same Bill that I served with, that he was a CIA station chief. I did operations with him when I was in Beirut. He saved my life. We think we know our story. If you think you know your story, stay tuned. Your perception may be a little off. Mine was. And this is the process of service. And I got to tell you, when I was new, one of the things that I'm not, resistance is futile, but I try. Okay. And I'm new, and my sponsor tells me I'm working the steps, and he says, you need to get into service. Love and service. You got to get into service. And he could tell I'm a little concerned. I'm not thrilled with this concept. And he says, what's the problem? I said, well, that sounds like work. And Michael says, well, it sounds like work, but it feels like love. And I'm like, oh, God. This is one of these AA platitudes. What a crock of crap, I mean, this is just, come on. I'm not a fluffy guy. I don't want, come on. And he's like, I'm just telling you, it'll change your life. This process of service, it'll change your life. And then he would say things to me all the time. He'd say, I do it or don't. Just let me know how it works out. And then he said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, yeah, he says, why don't you start by cleaning up? And I said, what do I got to do? He goes, well, you got to, my home group we're really particular. If you're a new guy, you get half the room, because it's like a half a cup of coffee. You're not trusted to do the whole room, right? So I got to sweep half and I got to mop half. And I told him, I said, I'm a lawyer. And he goes, yeah, lawyers look good with mops. I'm like, I don't know. I think that's sarcasm. I'm not sure. But so now I'm doing this, right? And I'm doing this, and I noticed that the guy next to, he's mopping on my side, right? I'm like, hey, man, this is my commitment. I don't even want to do it, right? And I'm like, hey, back off, man. This is my job, right? Because this is how you learn commitments. You don't even want to do it, right? And then the other thing is, he goes, hey, do you know? I said, yeah, I know. He goes, well, he's had a few DUIs. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that. He goes, and he lives in Culver City. I'm like, yeah. So he goes, well, you work downtown LA. You got to drive by Culver City to go to the home group at the Hermosa Beach Men Stag, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, why don't you call me and offer to give him a ride? I'm like, I don't like. He goes, I didn't ask you if you like. Remember, you said you were willing to go to any length for victory over alcohol. And I said, yeah, I know we said that, Michael, but everybody says that crap. Nobody believes that crap, right? He goes, well, look, I'm just saying either see it or do it or don't. It'll change your life. And he goes, well, why don't you like? I said, I don't know if you've noticed, but that guy will not shut up. He just talks. I can't even think straight. It drives me crazy. And Michael goes, perfect. Call me. I'm like, you're not paying attention, right? But I don't know what to do. So I all excited. He's like a little puppy dog, right? That'd be great. Yeah, great. I get him in the car. He does what he does. He talk, driving me crazy, right? I get to the meeting hall. I get him out of there, and Michael's waiting for me. He's like, how'd it go? Oh my God, it was intolerable. That guy will not shut up. And he's just smiling and laughing. He thinks, by the way, if you're new, all the sponsors think it's funny. And once you become a sponsor, it's humorous, but not for a while. Okay. And so he's like, this is great. And then he goes, well, Lamb, what were you thinking about while I was talking in your car? I'm thinking, I got to get him the hell out of my car. He's driving me crazy, right? He goes, well, were you thinking about yourself? I'm like, no. He goes, all right, that's a sweet spot. That's where we get out of self and into God. That's a conscious contact. You can call it whatever you want to, but that's where you're not thinking about yourself. I'm like, well, that's great, but it looks a lot like, and he's like, well, do it or don't. So I'm doing this, and I'm taking every Monday night. And I'm begrudgingly noticing that, this is a relief because I'm not thinking about me because Neil does. He is not a disappointment. He is on it, right? Right. And then I got to tell you, I'm sure you don't do this up in Northern California because you're much more sophisticated than we are down in Southern California, but cheated on me. He called another guy for a ride. Oh, yeah. I'm like, hey, what the hell? This is my guy. I didn't even like this guy, but he's my guy, right? It's like my mom, my guy. This is my. And I'm explaining this to Michael, and he's laughing. He thinks it's hilarious. And then he goes, okay, don't worry about it. He says, get another one. Like, get another one? He goes, get another newcomer. I'm like, you can do that? He goes, yeah, they're everywhere. And that's my experience. We're everywhere. I mean, about him, and I've been sober 29 years and change. He's been sober 29 years. And I got to tell you, most nights, not every night, but most nights, I kind of like him. It's okay. It kind of grows on you, and that's the thing about love and service. But you get into this process and you're working with sponsees and just stuff happens. And I got to give you a couple examples because if you stay around a while, you're going to have some experiences that hopefully you'll find are humorous, but at the time they're not that funny. And one of the things that was going on with me is I'm doing this 10-step practice. I'm doing the evening review and I'm writing inventory. And I realized that, I've made amends. I'm back in the big bed, but my wife does not appreciate all the hard work that I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know this because what she does is every night she takes the trash and recycling and she puts it out on the stoop. So I'm the trash and recycling guy. I'm pissed. I got a resentment. I'm writing inventory. I call Michael. I start reading him the inventory. He stops me. He goes, well, what did your wife say? What did Lynn say? I said, what do you mean? What did she say? Well, when you talked to her about this, what did she say? Well, I didn't talk to her about it. Why not? And I said, well, I've been married for over a decade. And I tell you, I know my wife pretty well. I can tell what she's thinking even before she's thinking it. I got this skill, And Michael says, we call that mind reading. It's a really significant character defect. If you are not willing to address it, you're going to have to pray and meditate and ask for guidance and direction because it's a resentment. It'll kill you dead. It's not a big deal, but it'll kill you. Okay. So I got to pray and meditate. I got to ask, I'm praying, I'm asking God for guidance and direction. And it takes me several months. And what I come up with, and again, I'm not that quick on the uptake. What I come up with is patience, tolerance, love, and understanding. I pray for it. It's all over the book. You guys are talking about it. It takes me several months. I ask for it. I get it. I've got relief. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm pretty cool. I'm not having a problem with the trash recycling. And I'm such an idiot that I sponsor a bunch of guys. So in my mind, I don't even realize I'm bragging. I'm thinking I'm trying to help them, right? My objective here is because I want to make sure that they appreciate all the benefits you can be getting through working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm caught up in spiritual pride. I don't realize it. One of the problems with spiritual pride is you see it, I don't see it because I'm in it. I'm in the jar. I can't see I can't see it, right? And so I'm bragging about this because I've worked through this problem, right? And this goes on. Like I said, I'm not that quick on the uptake. This 7 to 10 years, right? But I'm good. I'm not writing inventory about it anymore. I got the trash and recycling. Every once in a while, I just kind of I'll shiver a little bit, but I'm taking it to the recycling bins. I'm not writing inventory. I'm cool, right? Then we get a dog, Zoe, golden retriever, beautiful dog. She's passed away, but for a while, I would take Zoe out for a walk. Zoe would do her business. I would put it in a bag, put a poop in the bag in the trash where you're supposed to, right? And on nights like tonight, when I'm at a meeting, I'm not here. So Zoe would, she'd go out in the backyard. Lynn, my wife, would take Zoe out and Lynn would take the poop, put it in a bag. But did she put it in the trash? You're snorting, Alice. I'm not judging. I'm just saying you're snorting, sweetheart. I mean, I love you, but you're not well. I love you. You're just, I don't know why you're laughing. You're not well either. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and because I'm thinking this is now I got the trash recycling and dog crap. I got dog crap, right? So I'm writing inventory. I'm talking to Michael about it. Same solution, patience, tolerance, love, and understand. I pray for it. I get it. No problem. And I'm bragging. I'm telling all the guys what great work I've done, right? And then normally I go out the side door, which is where the trash recycling poop is. And one, I don't know, some years ago, I went out the front door instead of the side door. I never go out the front door. I went out the front door. I went to my office and I realized, oh man, I didn't get the trash, recycling, and poop. First thought was, it's about time she didn't. But then, no, this is my job. It's Monday night. I'm going to go home before my home group and I'm going to make amends. I'm going to, I'm going to clean it up and, I'm going to tell her I'm going to be better. And so I wait for the right moment and I'm talking to her and my daughter's there. And I say, Lynn, I don't know if you noticed, but this morning I went out the front door instead of the side door. I did not get the trash, recycling, and poop. I know that's my job. I'll be better next time. She's like, what? So, okay, I explained it to her again, right? And I said it one more time and she went, what are you talking about? So the third time I explained it to her real slow. And by the way, guys, they love it when you talk to them real slow, right? So I'm explaining this in detail, real slow, and she's looking at me like I'm nuts, right? And finally she goes, Steve, I don't know what you're talking about. So I put it out there in the morning. I figure I'll get it in the morning or the girls will get it or you'll get it, but I leave it there for you. This never dawned on me. For 10 years, I'm thinking she's been doing it to me. It's about me. Right. But I'm like, hey, I'm a spiritual giant. So I don't say anything right away. I go, hey, baby, I got to go because I can't say. I figure I'll get to my home group because they'll understand. Right. Oh, my God, what a mistake. They think this is hilarious. Like Bill, Michael, they want me to go around and tell all the new guys, hey, tell them what it's like to be a total jackass in Alcoholics Anonymous for at least 10 years. This is just let them know the details. So we go through this process. And I got to tell you, but if I don't engage in the process, I'll never transform. I'll never change. And some days are quicker than others. Some days are quicker than others. One of the big ones that I had that I want to talk about for a while is sarcasm. And I will tell you, it's not completely gone, but it's a lot better. But I'm doing this 10-step and I'm getting into this process. I'm working with all these guys. And I'm realizing that I'm sarcastic, and I don't mean like a minor comment. I mean I like a biting. I am saying things, and their faces are falling. I'm damaging them. I'm hurting them. And in Greek, sarcasm is sarkasmos, which means to rend or tear flesh. I mean it's a bad thing. You're not supposed to be sarcastic like that. So I recognize this is a character defect, right? I've done a 10-step. I got to make amends. I got to clean that up. I make amends and I tell my sponsor about it because I got to talk to other people. I'm continuing. And then first thing my sponsor says is, well, what about the other guys? What other guys? Well, you were sarcastic to Jerry, but all the guys that heard it, did you make amends to them? Oh man, this seems a bit excessive. So I start doing that, right? Because I want this to go away. And he's like, and it's not going away. So well, remember, go back to 6 and 7. So, you go back to 6 and 7 are like the boomerang steps. They kind of come back and bite you in the butt later, right? You get into 10. Now you got to address this. Now you got to ask yourself, all right, am I willing? Because sometimes I'm not. Sometimes it's just too tasty. It's fun to be sarcastic, right? And then you look at it and you say, am I humbly going to ask? So if I finally get to that point, because it's killing me, it's eating my lunch. So I'm willing and I'm praying and I'm asking God and I'm humbly asking and it's not going away. So I'm writing inventory. I'm reading it to Michael. I'm making amends to guys. It's embarrassing. I don't want to do this. And he says, well, look, in the original manuscript, in the 7th step, it said humbly on our knees. They don't have that anymore, but maybe you're just not showing enough humility. Maybe if you got on your knees, that would help. I'm like, I'll give it a shot. So I'm on my knees, I'm praying and meditating, I'm asking God to remove this because I don't want to be this person. I don't want to be this person. And I'm still this person. I'm still a dick, right? And I'm explaining this to Michael. And after a while, he goes, all right, I got something. He goes, this isn't the book, but are you willing to try something? I said, well, yeah. He goes, do you have Post-it notes? Yeah. Get a Post-it note and write on the Post-it note, don't be a dick. And put it on your mirror, put it on your dashboard, put it all over your office, all over the place. I'll give it a shot. I got the Post-its, don't be a dick. I'm kneeling, I'm asking God, man, I'm still a dick, right? So I'm talking to Michael and he's like, all right, I'll tell you what, because we had talked a long time ago about what my sponsor, a guy named Scott, called the terms of engagement. Charlie Parker used to call it spiritual consent. And he said, I'm going to talk to my sponsor about that with Scott at the time. And I thought, Because I got to tell you, when you're thinking, we're going to take it up a notch. This is not, I don't know, this is all right. So I got to call Scott, and I tell Scott I got this problem with sarcasm. He's like, "Yeah, we've noticed," and he goes, I've talked to Michael about this. I know what we need to do." So I'm thinking, all right, I'm ready. He's going to give me the solution, right? I got a little pen and paper. I'm going to take notes, right? And Scott starts reading me his inventory. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm reading inventory." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but what are you doing?" He goes, "I am reading my inventory to you." I know that, but that's not right. He goes, "What do you mean that's not right?" Because, well, I mean, I write inventory, I read it to my sponsor. I have sponsees, they write inventory, they read it to me, but my sponsor doesn't read me inventory. Certainly my grant sponsor doesn't read me inventory. He goes, "Where did you read that?" "I don't know, I just made this stuff up. It makes sense, right? It's logical, right? It makes sense." And he's like, "Well, look, this is what I do. This is how we engage in humility." And he said, "And you ought to try it." And I knew it was a good idea, but I'm not going to do that. No way. And finally, I'm just, it's eating my lunch, and I get to the point where I read this inventory to a guy that I sponsor. And he starts laughing, which pissed me off. And I said, "Hey, don't get over your knees, right? Just don't get over your skis. Just, you know." And I read this to him, and he says, "You're going to tell other guys?" I said, "Maybe. I'll think about it." And I did. And I got to tell you, that's when I evolved really from fellowship to sponsorship to relationship. And if you haven't had that experience, I got to tell you, it's magical. And it's a constant source of humor, and it's been critical to me to recovery. And I wouldn't have it any other way. But I will tell you, a little over 3 years ago, I had a stroke, and I had to learn how to talk again. I couldn't say the word water. And they told me later it was a minor stroke, but that's like when they tell you it's a minor heart attack, it's because it didn't happen to you. And because I'm alcoholic, I'm kind of self-centered about this. I'm concerned. I'm afraid. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. I got lost in my own backyard. It's not a big backyard. I mean, I got peripheral vision issues. I still can't see things really well. And I'm concerned. So I am not going to my live home group. It meets on hybrid. I'm going hybrid. And all these sponsees are calling me like, "Hey, come on, I'll give you right." No, I'm good. Because I'm embarrassed. I don't want to do this. Because it's really, this home group is like, it's really tight. Everybody's like all, knee to knee, and now they've got a camera up on the ceiling, but back then they had a tripod. You kind of walk around the podium, not hit the tripod. I'm afraid I'm going to bump into stuff. And I'm concerned. And I'm explaining this to some sponsees, and they're like, "Oh, what's the problem?" I said, "Well, and I'm jumbling up stuff. I'm mixing up words." And I was explaining to him that, I was telling a guy about because they wanted me to go, they want to take me out, they'll drive me. They want me to give talks. I don't give a talk. I can't even talk straight. They're like, "What's the problem?" Well, I talked about, there's this thing called the chili cook-off. It's a kind of an annual fundraiser. I called it the cookie chill-off. It was exactly that. And my sponsee's like, "Well, that's great. Don't worry about it." This is the newcomers, they won't know the difference. And the old guys would be excited. They're thinking they're getting cookies. Don't worry about it. This is how they treat me. Everything is a joke. And so, but I got to give this guy a cake, because that's what we do in my home. You got to physically be there. You got to give him a cake, and we give a coin and a cake because we're pigs, and because we're alcoholic. You got to have both, right? And so, I got to be there. I show up. They get me there, and I'm there, and my sponsor's here to the right. And I get up, and I got to kind of motion around to the right. I got to miss the podium, miss the tripod, and kind of go to the front to give this guy a cake, right? And I don't really know how I'm going to do this. I'm concerned, and I stand up, and my sponsor stands up, and he grabs me by the shoulders, like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" He steers me around the podium, and he hands me down the aisle to one of my sponsees that they had spaced out every 2 or 3 feet. And my sponsees handed me hand to shoulder, hand and shoulder, so that I did not trip and I did not stumble. And they showed me what love and service is. Because I got to tell you, if you're like me, it's easy after a while to be of service. It's not that easy to accept service. Like, I got this. I'm okay. I'm not okay. I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess. The only reason why I'm functional is because of you. If I didn't have you, it would be all over but the crying. I mean, and I got to tell you, you get to that point where you talk about that is the sweet spot. And eventually what happens is you'll get a sponsee, and instead of him, because what they do is they'll call you and they ask you, how are you doing? They interrupt you, right? Right? Because they go to the problem of the day, right? But then eventually, one time they get a sponsee and they call you and they want to talk about they're having a problem with Jerry. How do we help Jerry? And the sponsee and the sponsor will spend 15, 20 minutes and they'll be talking about trying to help somebody else. That's God consciousness. That's the sweet spot. That's love and service. Thanks for having me here, guys.